Alter ego and doppelganger. Many people sense a second version of themselves, sometimes a practiced mask, sometimes an uncanny mirror. This article explores what an alter ego or doppelganger is, how one forms, whether it can become autonomous, and a related possibility some cultures and narratives describe. An exact opposite watching over you. Definitions and how an alter ego forms. Alter ego, a consciously adopted or emergent facet of self that expresses traits you normally suppress: boldness, cruelty, playfulness, protection. Doppelganger, a cultural motif, an uncanny double that reveals hidden truth, threat, or transformation. Formation pathways. Adaptive specialization. Roles and stressors push parts of the self into distinct patterns. Deliberate construction. Performers and creators build an alter ego to access resources safely. Trauma defense. A compartmentalized part holds painful material or survival strategies. Reinforcement, repeated acting, as if builds neural and behavioral momentum. Outside of life, the opposite watcher. Some traditions, stories, and personal reports describe not only an internal double, but an external presence that mirrors you in opposite ways. A watcher who embodies everything you are not. This idea appears in folklore, omens, guardian demons, shadow figures, in literature, foils and antagonistic doubles, and in psychological metaphors, projected shadow. Consider how this concept functions. Meaning over literalness. For many people, the opposite watcher is a symbolic framework to locate fears, moral warnings, or projections from others. Psychological projection. You may externalize disowned traits into an imagined being that seems separate, but is composed of parts of you reject. Relational echo. Sometimes other people act or speak as if they are that opposite, reflecting social forces that pressure you toward or away from certain behaviors. Protective narrative. In stories, the opposite watcher can be a moral foil that keeps a protagonist accountable or catalyzes transformation. Autonomy, signs it's gaining a life of its own, and when the opposite watcher feels real. Psychological momentum. Repeated activation of a part or repeated projection can make it feel automatic, intentional, and other. Signs of dominance. Frequent impulses or behaviors that contradict your values. Post hoc detachment from actions taken in that mode. Others consistently experience a different persona and respond to it as if it were you. Persistent internal conflict with shifting identity over time. When the opposite watcher seems real. It serves a clear symbolic function: warning, punishment, protection. You project disowned qualities onto an exterior figure and treat that figure as having agency. Rituals, dreams, or cultural practices reinforce its presence, increasing felt reality. Working with, regulating, and integrating both phenomena. Map and name, identify the part or figure, describe its triggers, rewards, and costs. Naming reduces mystery. Assess function, ask what it protects and at what price. This reveals resources, courage, boundary setting, and harms isolation, aggression. Negotiate rules. Set conditions when the alter ego may act. If a projected watcher emerges, set mental limits on how much authority you grant it. Conscious switching. Practice stepping into and out of the role briefly to make transitions intentional. Translate strengths. Extract useful capacities from the alter ego, assertiveness, risk tolerance, and incorporate them into your baseline identity without harmful excess. Contextualize projected figures. Treat an outside watcher as meaningful signal rather than literal controller. Use it to surface values and fears to address directly. Seek professional support. If fragmentation causes distress, risky behavior, or impaired functioning, consult a clinician experienced in parts-based or trauma-informed therapies. What this could look like. Nightlife and dreams. Recurring dreams where your mirror image speaks or acts contrary to your values often arrive charged and cinematic. You may wake unsettled or oddly relieved. The imagery stays with you and points to unmet needs or unresolved fears. Keeping a dream journal and tracing repeating symbols turns those night encounters into a practical map for inner work. Sudden role shifts in social situations. Sometimes you flip into bold, provocative, or ruthless behavior that surprises friends and yourself. That flip brings a rush of energy and often a later sense of detachment or remorse. When this happens, name the mode after the fact, reflect on what it was trying to accomplish, and set clear boundaries about where and when that mode is permitted. Private inner dialogue. A distinct inner voice may argue, taunt, or urge actions you would not ordinarily choose, producing a felt split as two voices debate inside you. Mapping these voices, describing their aims, and negotiating internal rules lets you harvest useful skills from the louder voice while limiting impulses that cause harm. Repeated patterns with specific people. Certain people reliably activate an opposite persona in you, turning interactions into rehearsed roles rather than honest exchanges. That trigger dynamic escalates scripts you have replayed before. Noticing the pattern, avoiding automatic reenactment, and mentally rehearsing alternative responses ahead of encounters interrupts the cycle. Creative and performance contexts. Onstage or in creative work, you may adopt a persona that feels separate and more daring than your everyday self, producing flow and occasional confusion when the persona lingers offstage. Use entry and exit rituals for the role and intentionally translate strengths, like confidence and clarity, back into daily life, so the skills stay useful without destructive spillover. Moral or ethical doubt as an external judge. You might feel as if an outside force is watching and punishing or rewarding your choices, which produces shame, caution, or compulsive rule following. Reclaiming agency involves reframing that watcher as symbolic feedback, asking what value it is protecting, and deciding whether its rules still serve you. Physical sensations and stress responses. When the other persona appears, your body may tense, your posture change, and distinct urges surface, signaling fight, freeze, or perform states tied to a different identity. Brief grounding practices and labeling the sensation interrupt automatic escalation and help you choose a different response. External doppelganger in relationships or culture. Sometimes another person publicly embodies what you suppress, provoking relief, jealousy, or moral judgment. That dynamic can feel like projection. Exploring whether you are projecting and doing boundary work or direct conversation prevents that person from defining you. Ritual myth and symbolic experience. Participation in rituals or cultural stories that personify a shadow figure often brings deep symbolic meaning and catharsis. Engage the symbolism deliberately through writing, ritual, or structured reflection to negotiate terms with the figure and turn insights into grounded changes. Quick practical checklist to recognize when the other is gaining ground. Ask how frequently the persona appears compared with your usual self, whether its actions are changing your relationships or work, whether you feel detached or regretful after acting in that mode, and whether you can deliberately summon and send it away. If several items flag concern, treat the phenomenon as an important signal to map it, set rules, and seek professional support if it causes harm or persistent distress. Closing note. These manifestations range from poetic and useful to destabilizing. Treat them as meaningful patterns and use naming, limits, and intentional practice to reclaim the parts you need while containing those that cause harm. Final thought. An alter ego or a projected opposite watcher rarely exists as a separate supernatural being. Instead, they are patterned, meaningful ways your psyche uses contrast and containment to survive, grow, and warn. With curiosity, naming, clear rules, and ethical boundaries, these doubles can be repurposed as sources of power, information, and transformation rather than uncontrollable forces.